Nate gave you my background, so I don't have to go into that. When I'm talking tonight, I'm going to be referencing from a book I wrote. And many years ago, I decided to write a book. And I sat down with a lot of former and current athletes saying, tell me what your coaches did right. Tell me what your coaches did wrong. And the book is a combination of my experience and also collective wisdom from all these people I talked to. I didn't want my book to be just my own thinking. So the ideas I share with you tonight come from a wide variety of people with different backgrounds. Okay. Also tonight, I have a poster child in my book, and I'm going to be talking about a gentleman named Doc Councilman. And Doc Councilman was the winningest coach in the history of collegiate swimming. And I think he probably was one of the greatest coaches ever. He won 6 national championships and the Big Ten title. He's an Olympic coach. He was really an outstanding coach. And he was an expert not only in winning teams, but in teams that really came together, closely knit teams. And tonight, we're really talking about how to get a group together to get on the same page and pull together and have success. So I'm really going to be quoting from, I think, the best guy out there, the best person out there. Now, I'd like you to save your questions until the end. I think about an hour would be max everybody out here and you'll be ready to leave. So let's go for an hour, and then if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. And also, I think each of you were given one of my cards. If you want to, you want to email me or jump on my blog or continue to communicate, have any questions about tonight or about coaching, feel free to contact me. Okay? And also, if you email me, I'll give you an outline of tonight's presentation. If you want one, I'll send you an email. Okay, so with that said, let's get started. Okay. That's the question. That's the question. And many of you are going to be coaches someday. But if you're not going to be coaches, you are all going to be probably in positions of leadership. And you're going to have to figure out how to get the people who work for you to cooperate with you and to how to get your group functioning as smoothly as possible. So that's the question we're here tonight to answer. How can I gain the full cooperation of everyone involved so that the group comes together and functions as smoothly and as effectively as possible? And some of you might belong to organizations right now where you're trying to get the group together. I'm sure many of you have leadership positions already. Okay. A group of people wearing the same uniform does not necessarily constitute a team. Well, we know that's true. I know that's true from my personal experience. I had a team in early 1900s that won the championship. I had a group of people who won a championship. They were not a team. I could not wait till the season was over. They were bickering. They were fighting. It was no fun at all. So just because you have the same uniform on does not mean you really have come together as a true team. Oh yeah, Doug Peterson. An individual can make a difference, but a team can make a miracle. I hope we have some Eagle fans here. Now, good, glad to see that. Last year, I thought the Eagles team had an unusually high level of cohesiveness. I felt those guys were on the same page, and I really think that made the difference. I think that can make the difference, and it did make a miracle because they actually beat a team I think that was better than they were. So if you get a group of people pulling in the same direction, Doug's right, a miracle can happen. I think we had the Philadelphia Miracle last year, to tell you the truth. Okay. Phil Jackson. Anybody know who Phil Jackson is? Right, what, 11 NBA titles. The strength of the team is each individual member. The strength of each individual member is in the team. So these are pretty important quotes to think about. Okay. I'm going to read you a story one of my runners wrote. And every year I give an evaluation at the end of the year. And this story really bothered me. When I read what this kid wrote, it really, I knew I had messed up. And I had to own what happened because it was my mistake. Here's what he said. Coach, in my previous 3 years on the team, our teams had such a high level of team spirit and pride. I felt like we were in it together, that we all shared the same strong commitment to one another. It was obvious that we were all part of something special and that anyone who was not totally on board would be held accountable, and they were. I love the team feeling we had throughout the entire season. It kept me coming back all these years. This year, though, things were different. When we saw one of our runners skip practice twice and then show a bad attitude toward you, we assumed that he was gone. In fact, we wanted him gone. He no longer deserved to be on our team. As far as we were concerned, he was a team buster. When he was allowed to remain, this changed everything. Many of the other runners say the same thing. It did not feel the same as the year before. The team feeling was gone. The spirit and pride was not the same. So I made the mistake in wanting to help an individual so much that I neglected the team. And you have to put the team first when you're a coach. So as you can see from what the young man said, there really is such a thing as a team spirit. There is such a thing as team unity. It's a real entity. Some teams have it more than others. And I had that championship team where there was zero team spirit, and I've had very average teams, everyone pulled together. I love the whole season. So whatever group you're working with, the idea is to try to create that team spirit. So every year, I say to my team, my goal is to answer this question, can we become a team in the true sense of the word? That's my goal every year. Can we become a closely knit team? And I give the kids a little sheet to spell out what it means to be a team. A group of athletes committed to doing their best, committed to each other in the pursuit of improvement and excellence, all pulling in the same direction, all pushing themselves and each other, while remaining positive, respectful, and supportive of one another. So I say that to the guys every year. Can we make this happen? And to tell you the truth, it usually happens. We have a very high degree of team spirit, team unity. The guys love the season. They hate to see the season end. So that's my goal every year. So why is that so important to me? Why do I make that my goal? I'm sure you know the answer. When people feel the support of one another, everything goes better. The guys work harder. They can't wait to come to practice. They have better attitudes. They're more motivated. It's just more fun. When everybody's working together, it's much more fun. And really, what also happens is there's a much higher chance of the individual and the team coming closer to their team potential. Everyone does better. Everyone performs better. And whatever group you're with, if you can get them to come together, they probably will perform better. So that's my goal every year. Okay. Let's move on here. Okay. First principle. The principle of leadership. Model the behavior you expect from others. Okay. Now think of yourself now as a leader. Think of yourself as a leader of a group and how this applies to you. The person the coach presents to the team is just as important as the practice session. Who you are and how you present yourself, who you are as a person and how you present yourself to your group. One of my former runners wrote this one. If I'm going to bust my butt for an extended period of time, I must find a well of respect for the person asking this of me. The more the people respect you, the harder they will work for you. So you have to be the kind of person that commands respect. Good coaching, you could say good leadership, because I want you to be able to identify with what's going on here tonight. If you say, "Oh, I'm never going to be a coach," no, this is also for you. So try to identify with what we're saying here. This is your future. Good coaching can't be reduced to technique and knowledge, Much of it comes down to who you are as a person. And who you are as a person, right? How you conduct yourself, how hard you work, how you treat people, how knowledgeable you are, all those things. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to read you the story of a highly respected coach and the effect that a highly respected coach can have on the athletes. And I'm going to read you a story about a coach who totally lost the respect of the team. Okay? I think if you're a leader, and I'll say this as a coach also, if you're a coach, I think you're supposed to do two things. You're supposed to teach the skill. You're supposed to help the kids improve in their sport. I mean, that's why athletes come to coaches, because you want to get better, you want to improve, and you want to succeed. So as a coach, your main responsibility is to help them learn the sport and to succeed. And the second thing is, I think you should be a role model. So if you are in charge of a group, you really have to be a role model. You have to be someone that they look up to and respect. Okay, here's the first story. This is one of the guys who swam for Doc Councilman, talking about what it was like to swim for him. During practice, we noticed a difference in our performance depending on whether Doc was in the pool area, for example. If he left the pool area to answer the phone in his office, our times in the hundreds would increase. We would slow down. As soon as he came back, our times would go down several seconds. We would begin to swim faster. We were not going faster for fear of criticism, because he never used fear as a motivator. We improved our performance because we wanted his approval. We respected him so much, we wanted his praise, which was a much stronger motivator. So think about that. They respected this guy so much that they wanted to give all. And he would go back and forth, and they would go back and forth with their times. That's what a respected coach and a respected leader, that's the effect that you can have on your group when you're leading them. This is a bad story. This is a bad coaching story. One of my former runners who went to college. We had a first-year coach who was very authoritarian and trying to prove himself. From our first practice, he would make our entire team drop down and do push-ups if a team member was 1 minute late. You get the picture? You're late, everybody goes down and does push-ups. On many occasions, it seemed as if our team achievements were secondary to the arbitrary discipline that our coach demanded. All of this came to a head 2 weeks before fall break. The final classes before break were on a Tuesday, and by midday Tuesday, the campus was nearly empty. No teams were practicing. I was captain at the time, and a few of the guys approached the coach, asking him if they could be excused from Tuesday's practice. Our coach not only refused, he said, if you leave, you will no longer be on the team. Now get the picture. Kids are going home for fall break. None of the teams are practicing, and this coach decides everybody has to stay. Now, how would that go down with you? I mean, it doesn't make any sense when you think about it. If you're a good coach, you say, go home and run on your own, start your break. Well, for two of our teammates, that would mean that they would miss rides home, actually have to stay on campus for the entire break. As captain, I decided I should approach our coach and try to reason with him. I got nowhere, as he was determined he didn't want anyone on the team who was unwilling to sacrifice. Finally, I asked our assistant coach, who was by contrast a great team leader, to see if there was anything he could do. The next day, I received word that our assistant coach had been fired for undermining our coach's authority and siding with the runners. Needless to say, the entire team was irate. In the end, 3 of our runners quit. Motivation was gone throughout the rest of the season. So, how quickly did those kids lose respect for that coach, and rightfully so? He was so unreasonable, and athletes know when the coaches are reasonable or unreasonable. So he lost it. He lost his team. just because he had this thing about discipline and following rules. And this guy said afterward, it was so distracting, I found myself angry, I had trouble studying. We spoke to the athletic director, but nothing was ever done. 4 years later, this incident still frustrates me. So I wonder about that athletic director too. Why didn't he make a decision there and maybe step in and talk to the coach and try to get the coach to be a little more reasonable? So anyway, that's a story of one leader, one coach who was a good leader and motivated the team, and another coach who was not a good leader. And the team spirit was totally destroyed. Okay. Let's move on here. Principle number 2, the principle of standards. People live up or down according to what is expected of them. There's a quote from my book. One of the people I surveyed. My coach is like my parent in getting me to do what I don't always feel like doing. Well, that's part of coaching, right? If you want your team to improve, you're going to have to get them to sometimes do more than they feel like doing, that's for sure. I want a coach who expects more of me than I sometimes expect of myself. Sometimes you come to practice and you just don't feel like working that hard, and you need someone to say, sorry, you got to reach the standard today. This is really an important workout. Sometimes you need someone to raise your own expectations. This was written by a guy who swam for Doc Councilman. I remember having a knot in my stomach, seeing how hard the workout was going to be. It was presented in such a way, however, that we knew it had to be done if we hoped to reach our goals. And this is a national championship team or a Big Ten championship team just about every year. So, let's talk about standards here. Having high standards is a sign of respect. As a coach, you have to get people ready for competing. And they're not going to be successful unless you really prepare them, and that means hard work and having high standards. It's pretty simple. If you have low standards, it's really a sign of disrespect, because you're sending a terrible message to your athletes if you have low standards. It's almost like the athlete would say, well, that's all the coach expects of us. Well, we must not be worth very much. So high standards are a necessity and a sign of respect. I think most people love a challenge, and I think athletes really love a challenge. And if you don't have high standards, you're going to take that opportunity away for people to prove themselves. You're actually cheating them with low standards. So if you're a good coach, you're a good leader, you have to have high expectations for people. Okay? People live up or down according to what you expect of them. I'll give you a little story here. This is a good story. This is a swimming coach who was coaching in Spain. When I first arrived in Spain, I had a team of goofballs, maybe 70 or 80 of them. I was frustrated by their attitudes, and sometimes I would lose my temper and they would call me El Mal Genio, bad-tempered coach. Then a new guy joined the club. His mother was American, his father was in the Spanish Air Force, and he had a different mentality. He spoke English, we worked hard, and he improved. The other guys noticed, and he started getting praise not just from me, but from the club, the newspapers, and the swimmers from other clubs. Some of his teammates decided that they wanted to be like him. One by one, they started to come over to our side. As soon as we reached a critical mass, the tide changed, as the goofballs were in the minority. And poor behavior and lack of dedication was no longer acceptable by the majority. At that point, the fringe element either ships up or leaves. I finally had a team. It took over a year. Now let's think what would have happened if this coach had not continued to keep the bar high. He didn't lower it to where the rest of the guys were. He kept it high. One runner reached it. A few more came along. Then they became a team. So whatever group you're in charge of, you should really have high but reasonable but high expectations. And it's really another way of bringing the group together. Okay. Let's move on here. Principle number 3, the principle of caring. There is a direct relationship between how an athlete is approached and the level of effort given. Now, when you are in a position of leadership, you have to show the people that you care. That's very motivational. If you're the boss and your workers don't think you care, they're not going to work that hard. They're not going to give you what you want. You're not going to get what you want. So caring is essential. The most important factor in coaching psychology is the degree to which athletes feel the support and caring of the coaches. And I'll add another word to that. When I did my survey, respect. If the athletes felt respected and cared for and supported, the coach had them. They would run through a wall for that coach. Okay? Here's a good sign of caring. Coach made it a point to ensure that every senior was placed in some program of learning after high school. Now, caring is either an idea or a feeling, unless it's backed up with something concrete. So this coach did something definite. He checked on their grades. He went out of his way to locate schools. And I know the guy who wrote that. He taught with me for 25 years. He said, we were poor mill kids. We never would have gone to college if the coach hadn't done that. But the coach cared enough to do extra work. And you do that as a leader. As a leader, you have to do extra work. As a coach, you have to do extra work. It just comes with the territory. So you have to back it up. And when you're a coach, there are so many ways you can show the kids that you care about them. You know, I started giving out fruit after a hard workout. When I started to coach after about 15 years, I started bringing fruit. They started calling me Banana Man. But I could tell that they liked it. It was an affectionate term, like Coach's Banana Man. We know he's going to have fruit for us after the hard workout. It's just another way of caring. And you write letters of recommendation. You do so many things as a leader to help the people that work for you or under you. How about this? Dick Vermeil, Philadelphia Eagles coach, made it to the Super Bowl. This is professional football he's talking about now. Football is so difficult. It is hard to remember that the players are individuals. It is important to feel a deep level of concern for them as individuals and to transmit it. If you're feeling it and not showing it, how are they going to know it's there? Dick Vermeil, coach of the 1999 Super Bowl champions. So even on the professional level, grown men, they still need to feel the coach really cares about them and has their best interest in mind. It's just human nature. Okay? Okay. Here's a story that really is very touching. This was written to a friend of mine who's a swimming coach I talked about, Dave Tanner. One of his swimmers sent him this letter. Let me start out by explaining a situation. Dear Coach, it was the first day of February 2012. About a month earlier, I had been kicked off the team. I was everything from embarrassed to depressed. I felt like I was losing my mind. I was far from okay, to say the least. It pains me more than you ever know to say this, but I was considering taking the steps toward ending my life that very day. For some reason, I had to go down to the swim area for the first time since I had been kicked off, and I was not happy about it. I was far too ashamed to show my face in the hallway. I couldn't grasp the idea that I would have to face the man I had disappointed so gravely. I simply could not get myself to walk down the steps that I used to walk down every single day. I stood outside the door on the upstairs track gathering my thoughts when you emerged from those doors. I will never forget the feeling I got when I saw you, Dave. All my thoughts vanished immediately. I was frozen. All I can remember is your face lighting up. All I can remember is how it felt when your eyebrows raised and you got really excited to see me. You asked me with utmost enthusiasm if I was going to swim next year. I said, of course, Dave. You replied, like it was even a question. Dave, you saved my life that day, and you made my life better every day since. I went home and didn't cry for the first time in a long time. My outlook on life as a whole was changed because of that one moment and how you showed me how much you cared. So that's a powerful thing when people feel the genuine care of their coach. So if you want to bring a group of people together and have them form a strong unit, they have to feel cared for by you. As a leader, you have to do that. You have to find ways of doing that. So the first thing you have to do is you have to care and then act on it. Okay. Thanks for being such a good audience, by the way. Okay. Principle number 4. This is a good one. The principle of inclusion. Everyone is of equal importance. People are less likely to bore holes when they are in the boat with you, right? If they get the feeling like we're in this together, that's powerful. Coach asked us to find a way to give back to the team other than to be dedicated to our training. One way is to get to know everyone on the team, especially the freshmen and the slower runners who tend to get overlooked. It's so easy as a coach to not pay enough attention to everyone. As a coach, there are going to be people you pay more attention to. Usually they're the best athletes and they're the first team or you're getting them ready. And it's so easy to ignore the ones who are not, the stars or the first team. So that's the coach who wrote that was really wise. Like, get to know that girl there who hardly anyone ever knows. Get to know that new guy who's a freshman. He's the slowest guy on the team. One of my runners wrote this one in 1 year. I've never been on a team where there's such a sense of camaraderie, where everyone genuinely cares about each other's success, where the freshmen are accepted by the upperclassmen. You have to put the value out there. Like, I put this value out there every year with my team. Like, I say to the kids, Christian, Muslim, Jew, black, white, Asian, gay, straight, transitioning, everybody's equal. Nobody gets excluded. Everyone gets protected and treated properly. You've got to make sure everybody is on board. No one gets excluded. And it's so easy to forget certain kids. And some kids almost make it easy to exclude them because they're a little difficult maybe. I'll give you 2 stories. Every year we tell the seniors, you have to take care of the freshmen, you have to look out for the new guys. And a few years ago, we had a kid on our team. I would describe him this way. He was very easy to take advantage of. He could not stand up for himself. Not sure what his issues were, but he was very vulnerable and maybe not strong in certain ways. And we had a new guy join the team, and you know how you can sense another person's weakness sometime? Well, the new guy came out, and he sensed this kid was vulnerable, and he started going after him verbally. And I love this story. It got back to me. One of our seniors said, whoa, we don't do that here. That is not part of our program. So when you include everybody, that means that they have each other's backs, and everybody's protected, and everybody has a responsibility to protect everybody else. So he made that guy back off. That was our value. If you're going to be on our team, it's got to be a safe place here. You cannot come in here and start going after people. So I thought that was great that the kid did that, and usually the coaches have to do that. A couple years ago, we went to a cross-country camp called Briarwood Cross Country Camp. And I had about 6 runners who went away that year, and one guy was gay. He was clearly gay. So while my guys were getting ready to settle down one night, the bunk next to them, they heard faggot jokes. Let's talk about faggot jokes. So the word faggot kept coming over, and my captain's in there in the bunk, and 10 yards away is his teammate who's clearly gay. So what would you do in a case like that? Think about, don't answer, but just think about what would you do? Because what my captain did was he went next door and he talked to the guy. And these guys had no idea, it was not intentional. They were just telling faggot jokes, and they were not thinking of, the Cheltenham runner. So my captain went next door and he said, look, you can't do that here, We got guys in the team who are gay. You might too. You might have guys too. They're not saying it. You can't come out with faggot stuff. And the guys respected it. They didn't mean any harm, but they were doing harm. So this is what happens when you build that kind of, inclusivity, where everyone is included and everyone feels included. So that's a very important part of building spirit. So whatever group you're in charge of, look for the people who might be on the fringe, that you have to bring them in a little bit. And it'll really add to the group too. It'll add to the group strength, it'll add to the group spirit. It's so easy to exclude people when you are in charge of a group. Or the group might try to exclude people. So you have to really be alert and make sure that you practice that principle of inclusion. Okay? Principle number 5. The principle of knowledge. People don't know anything until they are taught. Let's see here. Yes. A coach's knowledge arms the athlete for competition. Arms the athlete for competition. You're an athlete, you come to the coach, you want to succeed, you want to improve, you want to be able to get into the game and do well. The coach has to help you do that. The coach has to teach you how to do that. The coach has to give you knowledge how to do that. That's why knowledge is so important. Here's a good story. Coach's knowledge of baseball mechanics and strategy was amazing. One day he instructed a kid who was not hitting to move his right foot back a few inches. He immediately began to belt line drives to the outfield. So that coach knew about stance, he knew about positioning, he knew stuff. And the kid benefited from the coach's stuff. I can ask my coach anything about running, proper training, peaking, injuries. I will always get an intelligent answer. Okay. Let's talk about knowledge here. Coaches get hired because of their knowledge. There's an assumption they know how to do things. They know how to succeed. They know how to bring a team together. They know how to train people. So knowledge is very powerful. If you're a leader, you have to do some studying. You have to know a lot of stuff. You have to know how to treat people. You have to know what you're talking about. Otherwise, the group will not respect you. So knowledge is powerful. Coaches are educators. And like a good teacher, you have to know your subject matter. And coaches have to know their subject matter. They have to know how to present it. They have to know how to treat people. They have to know what to do, not in all sports, but let's say you're a basketball coach, you have to know what substitute to make, what substitution to make, what kind of an adjustment in defense. You have to be smart and you have to know stuff. And I'm going to tell you a little personal anecdote here. I played basketball in college. They did not have running where I went to college. But when I I started to run in the military, and I really liked getting in shape. And so an opening came up for a cross-country coach, and I thought, I like to run, I like to stay in shape, I don't know anything about running, but I'm going to learn. So I signed up. Basically, I did not know what I was doing. In the first 2 years, my teams did not win one meet. And I was trying. I remember I went up to Penn State for a coaches conference, and I was trying to learn. but I needed more knowledge. And so the fellow who taught me is actually here tonight. Tom Donnelly's in the back. And Tom was a young coach then over in LaSalle High School. So I went over to, Tom went to Villanova, and he was a 9-time All-American here, and he's the Hall of Fame coach down the road at Haverford College. So I saw these articles in the paper about this young coach winning these championships, and I thought, maybe I can get some of his knowledge. So I called him up and went over, and he opened up his notebooks where Villanova won the NCAA championship 3 years in a row. And Tom was captain of that team the senior year, and he was a key part of it. And I'll never forget it. He opened up these workouts, and I felt like I struck gold. So the way Tom was, not only did he give me the knowledge that night, but he stayed with me. And I could call him whenever I wanted to. And now I was getting his knowledge. He was sharing his knowledge. My program turned around immediately. We started winning. And it was only because I gained new knowledge. Tom really knows what he's doing, and I did not. But gradually, because of Tom, I began to know what I was doing too. So you have to have knowledge if you're going to be a successful coach and a successful leader. And I think Tom knows how grateful I am for all that knowledge that he continues to share with me. Here is an amazing story. This is a story about one of my former runners who went to college, and he ran for a coach. Well, I'll tell you the story. When I arrived on campus 2 weeks before college classes started, I was in the best shape of my life. We had a tryout to see who would make the cross-country team. The top 20 runners made the team. The remaining runners were encouraged to train with us, but would not be racing and could try out again next year. Now, this was a great kid. I coached him for 3 years in high school, and he would have been a good college runner. He was big and strong and dedicated. So he has this tryout, and I know he ran all summer. I think he ran about 700 miles that summer because he was motivated to go to college and he wanted to do well. So here's what he says. We had the tryout. I finished in 3rd place, the whole team, varsity, everybody. And the first 2 runners were no more than 10 seconds ahead of me. I made the team. And it went downhill from there. We quickly fell into running 11 times a week. At first, I made huge gains under the training. We would run mile intervals, and I would be consistently under 5 minutes a mile with a minute's rest. I thought, this is college running. I'm going to succeed. The success was short-lived. As the season continued, I noticed my times were not improving. In fact, they were getting worse. I was consistently getting slower and slower each race. I knew it was because I was overtraining, and I told the coach, now you're the coach and this kid comes to you, what would you say? Just answer, think about that for a second. What would you say? What do you think this coach said? The coach said that I was a young freshman, I needed to push through it. It just had to be done. Well, every morning I would wake up, my legs were tired, sore, and heavy. We would run every hard workout after hard workout, then hit the gym 4 times a week and lift weights. It was too much. I could feel my body starting to give out. Now here's a kid, he's paying attention to his body, and he's not the kind of kid who would back off. He goes to the coach, he tries to tell the coach what's going on, doesn't hear it. One Sunday after a race, we did our typical easy run. 10 miles in 60 minutes. So we're running 6-minute miles. That's supposed to be a relaxed day, right? Running through the hills of the city was no easy task, especially the day after a race. When we finished the run, I started to stretch. I was stretching my right calf when all of a sudden I collapsed. I was carried to the trainer's office. He did not know what happened. Later that week, I saw one of the top sports medicine doctors in the country who worked for the Steelers. He said I had torn my Achilles. He put me in a cast, told me to rest for 6 months. Well, the recovery was longer than that, almost a year. By the time I was able to run again, I was halfway through my sophomore year, totally out of shape, could not get back into shape, and to tell you the truth, I didn't want to run under that coach anymore. He never once cut back a workout, never gave me a day off, or told me to swim or some laps to get me off my feet. My college career was cut short because of a coach who did not listen to his runners. I was not complaining about running too much. Anyway, later in my college career, the coach was fired, and the entire track and field staff was fired along with him. They brought in a new coaching staff, completely turned around the program. Moral of the story, coaches, listen to your athletes' complaints. Most of the time, they are legitimate. And realize you might not know as much as you think you do. So there's two stories about what knowledge can do and what lack of knowledge can do. Okay? Anyway, and this guy never went back to running either. Never went back to running. You know what? He got cheated. That coach cheated him. I'm not saying the coach did not do it intentionally, but he sure wasn't open to what the kid was saying. And also, he didn't know how to train people properly either. So he should have been studying more about how to train people. Okay. Principle of knowledge. Principle number 6. The principle of effect. We tend to repeat a pleasant experience and avoid an unpleasant one. Now think about this. This is Doc Councilman, right? This guy trained kids so, you had to really be good to swim for Doc Councilman. He had what was called a hurt, pain, and agony chart where his swimmers they swam long and hard. That's how they got to be national championships. So he has a really high-powered program. But look what he says here. It's important to make training and practice as pleasant as possible within the context of hard work. Within the context of hard work. So he knew if guys are going to push themselves that hard, they have to have fun too. You have to balance it out. This is a great line from one of the Philadelphia Eagles last year after the Super Bowl. It was fun, man. Coming to work every day was fun. Everybody cracking on each other, but when we step on the field, we work hard. Remember Derek Barnett? Remember the fumble that was recovered? He's the guy who recovered the fumble. So, sounds like they had some fun while they were working so hard on the way to the Super Bowl last year. Here's a guy who used to coach locally, a guy named Paul Westhead. A coach has to be stern at times, but playful at other times. New coaches often think they must be tough. Hopefully they will learn to relax and show humor and laugh with the players. The proper blend of yin and yang is the answer. So Paul started coaching at Cheltenham, then he went to St. Joe's, LaSalle, and it says there he won two championships with the men and the women. So he's saying, you got to find that balance. You know, could you raise your hand if you've ever been on a team, ever played in a sports team? Would you raise your hand? Any of you ever been on a team? Great. Oh, we have quite a few athletes here. That's good. Well, as you know, competition is hard. Preparing for competition is hard. Practice is hard. You know, you have to push yourself. You have to get up early. And you have all the other responsibilities. It's not easy to be on a team. And the only way you're going to get better is practice and practice. And then you get to a point sometimes where it's like, whew, I need a break here. It's getting to be too much of a grind. So this is what one of the kids wrote in my evaluation, or in my survey. This year on the swim team, our team began to physically and mentally break down. It was probably from a combination of things. Tough practices day in and day out, midterm exams, stress and lack of sleep. Our coach decided we needed to lighten things up with a pizza party and a pep rally. We swam for an hour and a half, which ended up being one of my best practices ever. Then we ate pizza, did cheers, talked and joked around. The coach gave them a psychological lift, a break. It was really smart coaching. The next day, our meet was snowed out, so we never got to see the results of our pep rally, but that practice helped bring a new beginning for me for the rest of the season. Sometimes coaches don't know when to take their foot off the gas. And when you're a boss someday, when you're a leader, and you're working your staff pretty hard, you have to be smart enough to know when to let up, because you can push people too hard for too long. So this is true about. Here's an interview with Doc Councilman. Doc Councilman coached high-powered collegiate teams. He understood the importance of his swimmers experiencing as many positive feelings as possible. He was a master at creating favorable conditions. He was once asked what kept him motivated regarding swimming, because at the time he became the oldest man ever to swim the English Channel. And can you imagine, that's not a lot of fun, swimming the English Channel, right? And he's an older guy. So he went through all the pain, he swam the channel, and they asked him, like, why do you still do that? And he said, well, a simple law. We tend to repeat a pleasant experience and avoid an unpleasant one. Swimming has always been a pleasant experience for me. I want kids to enjoy swimming as much as I do. I used to coach age group kids swimming, and they loved it. And I saw a movie once, a movie of Doc Councilman and his swimmers and the parties he would have. And he would have regular dinners at his house. There would be laughter. They would be doing skits. So much fun, a lot of camaraderie. And he must have really had a clown side. He used to go to practice with a mask on and make noises in a mic. He used to throw the records, rock and roll records of his kids into the pool. The kids would get his classical music and throw that in the pool. So there was a whole side of his coaching that was hilarious and fun. And if you're with a group of people and you are having a lot of fun as a group, that is really motivational. And that can really bring the group together. So when you're a coach and when you're a leader, just remember, you have to lighten it up and you have to have fun at times. Okay? I'll tell you a little personal story here. Oh, we're pretty good. We're about 10 minutes away. And right after high school, I went down and I joined the Marine Corps. And I was in Parris Island. And in Parris Island, the drill instructors have to get 70 guys to march in the right manner, march step by step, heels hitting the feet at the same time. And it is an ordeal. And the drill instructors pretty much came from the school of negative reinforcement. A lot of cursing, a lot of hassling, and a lot of verbal abuse. And it was not happening for our platoon. We were just not doing it. And they used to make us put our hands on the shoulders of the people in front of us and pull our heads down and make us moo like we were a herd of cattle. And it wasn't exactly motivating, but they were trying to get us to do what we were not doing very well. And I'll never forget it. One night, we thought, okay, after dinner, we have to go out in the barracks again. We have to go out in the blacktop, and we're going to get cursed at and screamed at and reminded of how we're not doing the job. And the drill instructor came in, he said, we're going to a movie tonight. And we couldn't even put it in context. Like in Parris Island, you don't go to movies. Only human beings go to movies. You don't even sit down. It was so out of context. How could something so positive be happening to us? So we marched to the movie theater. I'll never forget it. We couldn't believe we were actually sitting down and we were watching a screen. And I don't know what it was. It could have been a blank screen. We would have loved it. We were just so amazed that we had such a treat. So we lined up after the movie, and the most amazing thing happened. I'll never forget it because guys talked about it for a long time. We're marching along, and everybody was in sync. Every heel hit the pavement at the same time, and you got 70 guys marching, and it finally happened. We were finally marching like these advanced platoons were marching. And we got back to the barracks, and after boot camp was over, everyone talked about that being the defining moment when Platoon 274 became a platoon. And it was because they gave us something different. They gave us something fun. They gave us something relaxing. If we had stayed back that night and gone through the same old drudgery, there's no way we would have come together that way. So I thought, how can a drill instructor do something so positive? Because there was nothing, it was all negative. So positive reinforcement, the value of lightening up, having some fun, and it pays off. It pays off. All right, you've been great. We have one more to go. Principle number 7, positivity. A reward for achievement is more likely to achieve a better response than a criticism or punishment for failure. I could have used that story here, but it fit in a couple of different places. My coaches told me so many times that I was unstoppable that after a while, I started to believe them. Right? You give positive messages, after a while, some of them will sink in. Doc was critical at times, but he made it feel it was with your own good. He preferred criticism with something positive. Your left is good, but we need to work on your right arm. He treated everyone as individuals. If I was not performing well in practice, he would say, Dave, you're dragging today. Why don't you skip the rest of practice? He wouldn't say, hey, you stink. Get out of here. So somehow, he remained positive. One more. John Wooden. Ever heard John Wooden? 10 NCAA championships out of 12 years. He's a legend. UCLA basketball coach. I'm more and more convinced that really good coaching is based purely on leadership and using a more positive approach, not on fear and intimidation. Okay. All right, let's talk about positivity. Probably the key ingredient, like you're a leader, right? You're in charge of a group. If you're going to be negative, nothing good's going to come from it. If you're going to come in with a negative attitude, make negative comments, or just be negative, it's going to interfere with everything. So I think this might be the key ingredient to creating the right environment, being positive. I think a lot of coaches, and think about this when you're a leader, you're going to see good stuff. Why not talk about it? Well, if you're going to observe something, observe it out loud. I think a lot of coaches see a lot of good things taking place and they don't say anything. Instead of taking that opportunity to remind the person that you're really doing something worthwhile. So positive reinforcement is pretty powerful. Doc Councilman is being interviewed one day by a reporter, and he's watching one of his swimmers swim, answering the reporter, and he has his eye on the clock. And he yells to one of his runners, hey, that was very good, Bob. That's your best workout of the year. So the doc knew the guy's best times. He saw what he was doing, and he told him about it. And then he turned to the reporter and he said, you have to watch the times and know their best times. A fellow may have a good workout, and if you miss it, he gets really down. You can't let that happen. So you have to be looking for the good stuff. That's part of being positive. Here's what a young girl wrote. During my first season of winter track, we were doing some small sprints down the hall, and I remember thinking, I want Coach to notice me. I never had a coach who commended me for working hard. So I pushed myself as hard as I could, and when I finished, the coach said, good job, Kara. It was such a little thing, which he probably said to most people, but I was beaming all day. I'm an athlete who thrives and needs recognition from my coach. Those 3 words helped me so much. They pushed me to work harder, made me feel more comfortable in a new sport, and enabled me to feel better about myself. So I would add something to that. If you're going to give a compliment, be specific. Like, hey, that was really great at the end of that race where you fought that guy off and didn't let him beat you. Or that was really great in practice how you were doing those extra wind sprints. If you can be more specific with your praise, I think it's more meaningful. Not that the coach didn't do something worthwhile there. One word of praise from Coach and was invaluable. He would say to us, John, you were so impressive in the workout today that I award you a rating of excellent for the next 24 hours. He said it in a way that it seemed like a joke, but you went home feeling good about yourself for the next 24 hours, and you actually did better in class. You paid more attention. Such is the power of positive reinforcement. So, Here's a good one. Coach watched me get pinned in less than 30 seconds on my first 2 attempts. As a high school wrestler here. Weeks later, a large tournament was coming up. I worked twice as hard preparing for the tournament, but when I got there, I lacked confidence because there were 30 wrestlers in my weight class. Before my first match, all Coach said to me was that he believed in me. I started my match. I was taken down 3 times before I knew what happened. The first period was over. I'm losing 10-3. I was ready to quit, but then I thought of what he said to me, and immediately I got a rush of adrenaline, jumped up, and pinned my opponent. I went to place second, beating the number 1 seed in the tournament, and lost 4-2 in the finals. So think about that. You never know the effect your words are going to have on someone. This coach simply said, I believe in you, and the kid remembered it, and it totally turned it around. Okay, here's a good baseball story. It was during the tournament, and our team was in a big jam. The score is tied in the bottom of the 7th. Our pitcher got the first 2 batters out, walked 3 hitters in a row, and then ran the count to 3-0. So get this picture now. It's a tie game. He gets 2 people out, and now he's lost control entirely. He walks 3 batters in a row, and now he's 3-0. I mean, you know what the next pitch is going to be, right? It's got to be ball 4 if he's lost that much control. So I was playing infield, and Coach called a meeting, and he said, Brian, I'm going to take you out. You're not locating your pitches. Casey, I want you to go in there and pitch 3 strikes in a row. And Casey said, wow, I was scared out of my mind. I mean, I was an accurate pitcher, but no one wants to enter a game in that situation. Coach knew I was nervous, and he shook my hand and said, Casey, I know you can do this. No matter what, I'll still love you, but throw the damn ball through Matt's hands. 3 pitches later, I'm walking off the mound with a smile on my face, and Coach was the first to greet me. So he came in with 3 strikes and got the guy out, right? So these are the things that can happen. They're not going to happen unless you're positive, but they can happen if you are. Okay, so one more story, and then we're done. It's pretty easy. It's easier to be positive when things are going right than when things are going wrong. And you're going to be a boss someday, and you're going to see your workers messing up, and you're going to get negative feelings, and how are you going to handle it? So, as a coach, your job is to correct. In a way, you have to be critical, but you have to do it in a way that, that it has a positive result. So this is a story about a positive approach to a negative situation. And you're going to run into negative situations. We all do. It's just part of reality. So this is my last Marine Corps story. I had never even seen a rifle, let alone fired one, when I went to join the Marine Corps. And you have to qualify. So we went to the rifle range, and I am not doing well practicing. And when you missed everything in practice, they had a big red flag, and they called it Maggie's Drawers. And they would wave the red flag saying, man, you are stinking it up here. You aren't hitting anything. You're not only getting a bullseye, you're not getting anything near it. And Maggie was waving to me all through practice. I was really in tough shape. And I'll never forget this. Now, think about this. This happened in 1956. Think about that. And what happened has stayed to me this day. So I'm practicing, I'm nervous. The next day is the big test. And this rifle range instructor comes up. And he was different than the regular instructors, the drill instructors. And he said, I'll never forget his words, what's a big, strong Marine like you being afraid of an M14 rifle? Now, I'm telling you, I had no idea he was talking to me. I felt like saying, well, where is this big, strong, tough Marine? I'm like a 17-year-old scared kid. It didn't register that he could possibly be seeing me in that light. Now, I don't know if that made the difference or not. I qualified the next day by a slim 4 points. But I know one thing, he didn't make me more nervous, and it didn't make me more scared, and it didn't take away my confidence. So all those years later, that's the one thing I remember the most, those positive words when I really needed it and I was messing up. So maybe when you're a boss someday and people are messing up, maybe what they really need is a little word of encouragement. I want to thank you. I want to thank you for being here.